All right, guys, it is a glorious day here because season 2 of Vinland Saga has now premiered. The first episode is out. You can watch it either on Crunchyroll or Netflix. If you have those, every single Monday, there's going to be a new episode that drops. Or, you can find some shady website to watch it somewhere if you want to. But I would suggest supporting the official release so that it does well, so that we can continue getting Vinland Saga seasons as time goes on. But this very first episode is entitled Slave, and that pretty much is the theme and idea of what this entire season, what this entire arc is going to be about. But also, I like that this episode focused on my boy Einar. All right, Einar is probably one of the most underrated characters of all time. He's such a bro. He's a great best friend. Also, get myself some ginger blue eye representation out there, right? So Einar is the main focal point of this episode, and I was thinking that they were going to do something like this with what they did with this episode in particular, because season 1 did this as well, where it added in some new scenes that we didn't get within the manga that helps expand and explore what's happening with the characters a little bit more and gives us an idea of what was happening within a gap of time that we don't get to see in the manga. Whereas the manga jumps to a certain point in the story, we get a little bit more of an exploration of things that have happened within that time. And I thought season 1 did an excellent, amazing job with that, especially with Thorfinn's past and his childhood, showing his first kill and everything like that. And so this episode takes that approach with the character of Einar. And I thought that they were going to do this. This is exactly how I thought they were going to start the season, and I'm glad that they did it, because this entire episode is focused on Einar, which in the manga, it's focused on him as well, because he's the person that leads us into Keitel's farm. Also, just real quick, if anybody is new here, if you're showing up for the first time, I have read the manga, if you haven't noticed it in the background yet. So I am caught up with the manga. I also review the new chapters of the manga when it comes out, so I'm going to be reviewing this season, not so much as I'm wondering what's happening next and theorizing what's happening next, but instead kind of seeing how it adapts it from the manga, seeing what it expands on, and just seeing how the overall presentation of the anime is going to go. So that's basically how I'm going to be reviewing these episodes. But the manga showcases us Einar, and it shows him on the ship, leaving the docks, being bought by Keitel, and being brought to the farm, and that's where we meet Thorfinn for the very first time, who is also a slave on this farm. That also happens in this first episode, and that's also how I thought they were going to introduce him, but they went even further back to see exactly how Einar became a slave in the first place. And he explains this in the manga, and we get ideas of what happened to him back then and why has this such visceral hatred for, the warriors and the Vikings and the world around him and everything, and what brought that hatred on. And it goes back, and we see the very beginning of this episode. Actually, real quick too, in the very, very beginning of this episode, I think we see a very quick image of Arnid and her husband, again, before she is brought in to be a slave. And there's this one specific shot that stood out to me of their baby. And you see the father figure kind of go up and touches the baby's face, and he has a little bit of blood on his finger. The blood smears off on the baby's face, and maybe it's a little bit too on the nose. Maybe it's slightly cheesy, but at the same time, I really love the symbolism of that. The symbolism of being born into this world, you are effectively an innocent. You have yet to be corrupted by the systems around you. You have yet to have the trappings of life kind of pushed into you, or the need and necessity to go in one particular direction. You're completely free in a way that you'll never be free again for the rest of your life, especially in a world that is consumed with war, violence, slavery, and all of the other horrible things that were happening at the time. And just seeing the blood swipe on the baby's face is kind of a showcase of like the innocence of beginning of entering this world, and then ultimately what it ends up to be, which is a lot of bloodshed and destruction. So I thought that was clever. I like that. And we go into the opening credits, which I thought were fucking fantastic. I love the imagery of it, of Thorfinn falling into the ocean and being kind of brought down by the sins of the past and the people that he's destroyed, and the demons that he'll eventually envision, all of the skeletal zombie-like creatures that want to pull him down into the grave, into the depths of hell with them. And that kind of symbolism was great. I love the opening song. A little bit more somber, but that's what this arc is going to focus on. It's going to be a little bit more somber than season 1. So if you are new, just expect a little bit of difference within this season, but there still will be some heavy action moments for sure, and I'm sure that the anime is going to add a few as well. as we've seen like Thorkel in the previews and whatnot, and he's not really featured in this arc much in the manga. So we'll see how they incorporate him as time goes on. Now the thing with Einar is it starts out where he is on his farm and he has a mom and a sister, which I'm pretty sure he mentions in the manga, but I can't quite remember a specific moment where he mentions them. But anyways, they're kind of hanging out and enjoying the peaceful life. And of course, it's not going to stay peaceful for long. It immediately cuts to them being raided by a group of warriors. And of course, his mom is killed by an arrow. His sister is about to be taken away. She tries to fight back, can't do it. Man overpowers her, cuts her down. And then Einar is just kind of left broken. And he has this rage within him. They do this really cool thing where they zoom in on his face. And you see this like just anger, fury kind of building up within him. But at the same time, Einar is not a warrior. He's not a trained person. Like he's hitting the tree with the axe because he's like, well, I might have to defend you guys someday. But Einar is a gentle person and he's a regular guy. And that's part of the reason why I love him so much in Vinland Saga and moving forward, as you'll see, is because you have the trained fighter Thorfinn. And then later on you get characters like Hild, the hunter and stuff like that. But Einar is a farmer. That's what he is. He's strong. He's well built. They mentioned this in the episode as well, that he actually, he's extremely physically fit, but that's because of how hard he's worked by farming and cutting down trees and doing things that actually benefit to continue life rather than take it away. So he's physically fit, he's smart, he's capable, but he's not a fighter. And so he's immediately overpowered and doesn't really know how to fight back against these people. And it just fills him with rage. And you do feel that. If you ever enter in a situation where somebody just physically dominates over you or physically overpowers you, and you know that you're helpless, like you know that you are strong, but you're not to that level, and the fact that you weren't able to protect the people closest to you, and it's enough to drive you mad. And that's kind of where we see him begin the story. So we see that happen, him get taken away to be sold as a slave for beer money, I think it was, or drink money, they called him. They're like, come on, drink money. Like that's how low and degrading that they view him to be. Now, the other thing I thought was interesting about this first episode is getting into the mindset of a slave, because the episode is called Slave. The whole arc will take place pretty much within this farm with slaves. So it wants you to understand what a slave really is. And obviously we all know what a slave is, right? We've all had some kind of history class or understood what slavery is. But there's a shift in mind state that Einar goes through in this episode that I thought was really interesting, because at first when they're setting him up to be sold, he tries to run away. Of course they catch him, they bring him back, they beat him, and they try to sell him again. But what's going on in his mind this entire time is that, like, I need to escape, I need to run away, I need to protect myself, I need to get out of here. And so it's this kind of rebellion. But every time he does, they catch him or they beat him down. Or if he actually does manage to escape, he's in a foreign area, he doesn't know how to interact with people, he has no money, he has no connections. I don't even know if he could speak the language depending on where they are. And so he realizes that the more that he complies and the more that he submits, the better off he'll be. And I think that's the beginning shift of, I don't want to call it brainwashing, I don't know what it's called, but to make you comfortable being a slave. To understand that the more that you fall in line, the more that you follow orders, the more that you give up your free will, the safer and better and more provided for you will be. So you lose your autonomy as a person as you slowly, like, you want to get out and prove something for yourself and stand on your own and have that freedom. But with that, there's that heavy cost of the danger and the horror that's associated with it. And then if you just give in and comply, well, you're going to have shelter to some degree. You're going to be fed to some degree. And then slowly your willpower as a human being begins to be stripped away as you just accept your current circumstances. And I like that shift. I was expecting, as soon as Einar got taken by the Viking, I don't know if they are actually Vikings, whatever they were, the people that raided his home, I thought it was going to cut immediately to him being bought by Keitel. But instead, they really spent this time to show Einar wanting to escape, but then going back on his views and his values just to comply for safety, which was interesting. And I like that. I like that going along with the theme and calling the episode itself Slave. I thought that was great. Now we do get to see Leif Erikson show up, and he's of course looking for Thorfinn. I always felt so bad at the end of season 1 where the first arc ends, because he's with Thorfinn and he could take him home now, but then Thorfinn goes to check on Askeladd and everything gets fucked up, and then of course now Leif Erikson is searching for Thorfinn again. So then eventually we meet the guy Keitel, and we don't get a whole lot of information about him in this episode except for he owns this farm, and he looks at Einar, probably can recognize by his body type that he's strong and capable and able to chop down trees, which is what he needs. So he buys him, but he doesn't grab his junk. There's a moment in the manga where he grabs Einar's junk. I was waiting for that moment. I don't know why. And when Einar gets to the farm, it's beautiful. Keitel's farm is huge. He owns a ton of land, and he knows what he's doing, and he's got like a whole system economy going with just his own little area of land. And so Einar's here in this beautiful location looking at an area that he's always thought and dreamed about, but you know, he's a slave in this area, but look where he is. It's gorgeous, you know? And he recognizes that, especially as somebody who farms and that does this kind of thing. He's just like, holy shit, like this is amazing. And then that's when we're brought in and we finally meet Thorfinn, which I really thought that this would be the cliffhanger of the first episode. You start the first episode with a new character, build up kind of the situation that we're in, and then we lead into the story showcasing, you know, finally getting back to Thorfinn. And immediately, Thorfinn has no lines in this episode, and you can tell immediately just by the way that he looks that Thorfinn is broken. Thorfinn is broken and depressed, and you know his hair is long and disheveled, and he just looks up and he just has the axe, or I think it was the axe, yeah, over his shoulder, and he meets Einar for the first time. And this is a very different Thorfinn than we were ever used to seeing from season 1. I thought the ending song was great as well. I don't think it's as good as Torches. I don't think any song is going to be as good as Torches. I felt like that song really encapsulates the feeling of Vinland Saga for me. I think that's just a great track. I listened to that on its own, not even just waiting for the credits. I just listen to it when I like want to go out and lay in the grass and reflect on my life at 1 a.m. Don't judge me, I do these kind of things, but Torches is one of the songs I listen to. But I thought the ending track here was good as well, and overall I thought this was a fantastic first episode. I am so excited for season 2. You guys know, if you're a fan of my channel, if you're here, that this arc, the slave arc of Vinland Saga, is my favorite in Vinland Saga. Also, definitely within my top 5 manga arcs of all time. It's going to get so good, so great, so complex. There's so much to the character development that happens. And if you are a fan of character work and character development, this is going to be the season for you guys. So anyways, season 2 of Vinland Saga, episode 1. Let me know what you think down below. Thoughts, theories, ideas, opinions. If you're brand new, I'm going to try to keep it as spoiler-free as I can, episode to episode. Really, I'm just trying to compare it to the manga, see what they added, and just kind of reflect on the series as it goes along, and just enjoy it, man. Let's just enjoy it. Anyways, guys, like the video if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did so. Also, if you want to subscribe to the channel and help me reach that 100,000 subscriber goal, I would really appreciate that too. If you want to help the channel on that deeper level, there's links in the description below, Patreon, merch store, channel memberships, and other than that, have a wonderful day, guys. I'll see you next week.